Good evening, everyone. We're going to open the meeting. We still have our chair who's not here yet, so we're just going to give her a couple minutes. So if everybody could just be patient, but stand by. Thanks.
So I was gonna say, thank you for staying on the blue. You're gonna re-up. Sitting there, cause must be true. I think you bring a lot to this board. It's on the other side of what I am, but it's gotta be a balance. Oops. It's always on. It was always on. I turned it on, turned it off, turned it on. I'm still on.
Do you want to move down and use that one?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't care. I'll just be quiet.
Up now.
Okay.
It's hot.
That's
It
what.
says it's hot, but it's not.
Yeah.
Want to move down to that chair?
Nah. No, he'll be here.
Or you can just pull that microphone over.
Hey there. Welcome.
Okay. Apologies for the delay. Where are we at? Apologies for the delay. Where are we at right now? Oh, okay.
We opened it and waited.
Okay, thanks. Let me get my laptop open. Do you have a copy of the agenda? Thank you. So sorry for the delay. The Design Review Board meeting for February 1st, 2024 is officially open. We'll have a call to order and a roll call vote, or a roll call, sorry.
Board Member Malat,
Here.
Board Member Rosner,
Here.
Vice Chair Chong,
Here.
Chair Kim,
Here.
and Board Member Odericio is absent.
Okay, thank you. Next is on our agenda is oral communications. Anybody wishing to address the board on a subject matter not on the agenda, please do so. You have 3 minutes to make a comment. Please state your name before you make your comment. I don't see anybody in the audience. Is there anybody online?
Chair, there are no hands raised.
Okay, terrific. Next we'll go to the staff briefing. Is there any briefing from the staff?
We do not have any.
Okay, next is minutes. Anybody have any comments or corrections or notations for the January 18th, 2024 minutes? Anybody want to make a motion to adopt them as is then?
Sure. They were not available. Oh, there's no one to make a motion.
Apologies.
No worries. I was doing the same thing. So I was thinking,
I saw something online with like annotation.
we have it in the agenda, but it wasn't ready when the.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Published.
That's what I saw. Okay, thank you. And at this point, we will open it up for public hearings. The procedure typically is applicant has 5 to 10 minutes, except for this one. Yeah, for 59 Paseo Marisol, we have that. So the first is the applicant can present for 5 to 20 minutes, and then we can ask questions to staff or the applicant. Then we have public testimony, 3 minutes per person. And then the applicant has 5 minutes to respond, and then we close the hearing to the public testimony and deliberate amongst ourselves. And the first one on the agenda is PH1 59 Paseo Marisol. If the applicant can come up, thank you. I think the microphone needs to be on.
Great. Hi. My name is Nicholas Thomas. I'm a registered architect of the state of California. I'm here representing my client, Jeremy Devich, and his family for the property owners at 59 Paseo Marisol. We are proposing doing a roughly 647 square foot addition to their single family home. Is this? I'm pressing down. I don't know if it's. I'm not going to take in more than 20 minutes for sure.
if it's not working, you can also just tell me to go forward.
Oh, yeah.
I
If you
can
want to go
for you.
forward to the next slide. Basically, we just want to cover 3 things, why we're building the addition, what is the addition going to look like, and how does this addition relate to the neighborhood and integrate into the streetscape. Next slide. The Deviches have already renovated this home in 2019, improved their quality of life and the streetscape of Paseo Marisol. Their family is growing. They have 2 children that are 3 and 5. By expanding this footprint, they're allowed to stay within the home with their growing family and also accommodate, family members coming to visit, grandparents, and they're expanding lifestyle. So they don't have to move out of the neighborhood and can stay where they are. Next slide. The design, it's intended to complement not only the existing renovation that was done in 2019, but also so integrate into that existing aesthetic. And I have a few more graphics to explain if you want to do next slide. So you can see that, oh, sorry, do you have the remote still? Well, I think the laser pointer wasn't working. So this is the existing house. As you can see, the addition would be going into this front lawn located here. This is Paseo Marisol. This is, I believe, 55 Paseo Marisol, and this is 63. As you can see that there have already been additions and expansions done to both houses on the left and right. So this would be in more line with the existing streetscape. Next slide. So you can see with the gabled masses, they're complementing the houses to the left and right. So we'd have one gabled mass facing the street here, a complementary one in the new addition over here. And then, yeah, the resisting bulk of the house remains the same. So a small attachment point near the living room. Next slide. Just a very, very simple diagram showing the existing home. We'd be creating an interior courtyard, and then this is the proposed addition. So you can see the sort of the ratio of existing home. This area to the left is a split level, and then this is the main level of the home to the right. Next slide. So this is a photo of the front of the house. As you can see, the split level is a primary bedroom over the garages. This is the living dining room and kitchen area. We would be expanding over this grassy area in the front. Next slide. So this is the proposed facade of the addition. As you can see that this is what would be visible from the street. We would be continuing this dormer over these two existing windows. The other aspect of this addition is that we wanted to improve the proportions of the house. So we're lowering the sills of a lot of these windows so that the house reads better, just like a better proportion to the house. We would also maintain the same materiality, the same colors, and the same window specifications for the new addition. Next slide. This is just a cross section showing the new doors and the new windows in the courtyard and how we're tying into the existing house. And then showing a streetscape, you can see that, you know, we have these gabled masses on 55 Paseo Mirasol, and then also with the new addition and the other little gable masses on 63 Paseo Mirasol that we would be in conformance with the streetscape. That's my entire presentation. If you guys have any questions, be more than happy to field them.
Anybody from the board have any questions to the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for the public for comment. First, we'll do a look at the in-person audience and see if there's anybody who'd like to make a comment. Okay, seeing none, is there anybody online? We'll give it a couple of seconds.
Chair, there are no hands raised.
Okay, if the applicant has any other further comments.
No, but thank you.
Okay. At this point, we will close it off to the public and deliberate amongst ourselves. Would anybody like to start?
I'm sure I'm happy to start. I went out to the site today to look at the story poles. It seems pretty straightforward. You know, I did have at least just kind of pulling up initial concern of the neighbor to the right, but you know, seeing no letters, and it's really not. It's not a viewed neighborhood, so it's not like you're looking across at views or anything like that. So all in all, it seems like a project to be easy for me to support.
Great. Anybody else?
I was mostly concerned about the streetscape with all of the houses along there having gables. And this one actually will help break up what otherwise would become a solid wall across there would, if it were in a different location. It's nicely designed. I think it's a good addition to the neighborhood and the house.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any additional comments. I drove up to the site today. That was my initial thought as well, that maybe the neighbor to the right might have some issues, but it seems like they're supportive, or so I could definitely support the project.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I went to the site and I was looking over. I was like, there's not really much to see. So, okay, shall we try since there's no variances here to consider. So anybody like to try to make a motion?
Do we have a draft resolution for this one? All right, we do. All right, so as to 59 Paseo Mirasol, I move that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and that we approve the draft resolution as written.
Second.
Shall we just do a voice vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. 4 approve, 0 opposed, and 1 is absent. So thank you. The next, so then the motion is adopted. The next on our item is page 2, 283 Cecilia Way. If if our town attorney could tell us what the procedures are and how we're supposed to consider this, that would be great.
So you are considering whether the planning department's, the staff's decision on the changes that are specifically related to height, you're deciding if you support those changes, if you don't support those changes and why, or support that approval or don't support that approval and why. You can uphold, you can deny the appeal, you can accept the appeal, or you can modify it, but you're really only looking at the issue of the appeal. So not the entire project. So in this case, you're just looking at the roof height issue or the issues that are present in the appeal, which is, I believe, attachment 3 is the appeal request. So you are just looking at what you, if you support the, staff's determination, or if you don't support it and why. And you can deny, approve, or modify the appeal and place conditions on it. But you're only looking at the specific issue here and not the entire project.
Could you specify what we are exactly looking at? Because I was going through it and I was, what are we?
So I think that this would be because it's the facts, but in
Yes.
my understanding, it's really, it's almost the finished, the floor height or
So this application went through the design review board process last year and it was approved at the July 20th meeting. If I'm giving too many details, tell me to stop. And there was a design that was approved, and once the appeal period ended, the applicant submitted to the building department for building permits, which is a normal process. And then they moved forward, they started construction. They came back and submitted a revision which increased the finished floor height from what was approved which was taller than what was on the plans that were approved when it went through design review board the first time. And the code allows either the director of community development or her designee, planning staff, to look at changes made to an approved project, and we have to verify if it's considered a minor change. And then there are 6, for lack of a better word, findings that we have to make. Essentially that it's, I can read them would it be helpful to have?
Yeah, it would be helpful to understand
What
the-
exactly we looked at.
the
in process we
parameters
went through?
within, making a discretionary approval, yeah.
So language from the code says that the change is determined to be minor in nature, and that staff finds that the change is consistent with all applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance. So there were no changes from what was approved. There wasn't a variance that was created or anything beyond what's allowed. The second was that it does not involve a feature of the project that was basis for findings in a negative declaration or environmental impact report for the project. The change does not involve a feature of the project that was specifically addressed or was a basis for conditions of approval for the project, or that a specific consideration by the design review board in the project approval. The next one is the change does not result in significant expansion of use, and the change does not result in additional floor area or skylights. And the last thing that we needed to consider was that the change results in a revised project that it is in substantial conformance with the form and intent of the original approval.
And the basis of appeal was on which points? 3 and 5, I presume?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell us what the change in height actually was?
So on the original application, the finished floor height was measured from grade at curb. That was the baseline for how height was measured throughout the project for finished floor, building height, roof height. That was what the baseline was. And the original finished floor was 1 foot 4 inches. And then when it came back and was revised, it was 1 foot 11 5/8 inch above that grade at curb. I don't know if you want me to keep going about what other things that we looked at, but that was the change.
Why was it done again?
Pardon?
Why was it done? The building department needed this?
Yes.
And that's from.
Oh, no, the building, why was the change made?
Yes.
I think the intent was to have it at a certain point, but the plans did not reflect that. I'll let the applicant speak to that as well too. But that it should have shown that height when it was presented to the board. But it showed a different height.
So it's a 6-inch change in the finished floor height, but the roof remains the same.
Correct.
Okay.
7.5/8.
Oh, 7/5/8.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they submitted plans, I review them to verify that the height did not change. That the massing was the same, nothing was, or that the project was consistent with what the board approved. The only thing that we looked at initially where there was a change is on the east and west elevations, specifically the windows would be higher based on the finished floor. So the applicant actually submitted revised plans that reduced the windows so that the height of those windows was consistent with what was approved by the board.
So I'm sorry. So the height of which height? So the eave height or
The head of the window.
yeah,
For the
head.
windows. Do you-
So the size of the window is the same, and so it went up and down?
The windows were actually made slightly smaller so that they could stand at the same height that was approved, but they had to decrease because when you move the finished floor up, instead of the whole window going up, they had to bring the window down slightly so
Got
that
it.
it was consistent.
Okay,
I think it was 7 feet from the original curb at grade.
Got it.
I have photos of the plans too, if that's helpful to go
okay,
through.
so what happened was if the floor is here,
Mhm.
they kept the header, but then they moved the sill up a little bit so that the size of the window is the same, is smaller.
And then it doesn't go any higher than what was approved. at the
Yeah, so
board.
this stays same, this datum stays the same, this
Correct.
one just went up a little bit, okay.
I'm gonna pull up the.
Do you know
plans
how
to
much,
make
do you know
sure.
how much the bottom datum went up?
Let me,
Could we hear from the applicant?
Yeah,
Can we let the
maybe-
applicant-
do you want to have the applicant speak?
Yeah.
Does everyone have enough information and instructions from staff?
I think we need.
We
the
will get to the applicant, but I just wanted to make sure that we understand what the issues are. So the issue is not just the floor height, it's the impact on the windows on the sides.
Well, to clarify, the windows were not the point of the location and the size of windows was not the basis of the appeal. It was just one of the aspects that we looked at. So
Got it.
it's not part of what we're really reviewing tonight.
Got it.
It was just the only thing that would have any change that varied from what was approved at the board was the windows.
Okay,
But the applicant modified it so it was consistent.
okay. Does everyone from the board feel comfortable? Okay.
Did the roof height change at all?
No,
Okay. And then could you tell us the procedures on an appeal and how much time each party gets?
yes. Use my cheat sheet.
Yes.
So the appellant or the appellant's representative can speak for 10 minutes.
Mhm,
And then the applicant is able to speak for 10 minutes as well after that.
mhm.
If you need to extend, if the applicant and appellant are either needs additional time, you can give them more time, 3, 5 minutes, whatever you deem as
But I have to
necessary.
give them equal.
Yep.
Amount of time.
And then after that, you can open public comment. It's 3 minutes. Like it normally would be. At the close of that, the appellant has a 3-minute rebuttal. And then the applicant has a 3-minute rebuttal, and then it closes to. public
And
comment.
staff questions are not included as part of the initial or any of the time allocated to either party. Okay. Okay. So if the appellant can come up, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. Please state your name into the microphone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Fitzgerald and I live at 287 Cecilia Way. And just to clear things up, my appeal wasn't concerning the floor height, it was concerning the roof heights and also the lack of documentation in planning when I went to review the plans. So I'll just start right there. I reviewed the plans for 283 Cecilia Way on Thursday, 12/21. The first day they were available for public review. I had some questions concerning the heights of the roof lines. Dina Tassini from planning replied to me later that day that the plans were already approved and that if I had any questions, I would need to file an appeal to the design review board, which brings us to this point. Town Hall was closed from 12/22/23 to 1/3/24. I filed on that date. On 1/11/24, I received an email from Dina Tassini that some changes were made, that she was awaiting a new set of plans. On 1/17/24, I received an email that the applicant requested a change to the finished floor height, which planning approved. On 1/18/24, I received an email from Samantha Bonifacio from planning that the plans were available for public review. So on 1/22/24, I did review those plans. They were different from the plans I reviewed on 12/21/23. There were only 6 pages to review on 12/21/23. Page A205 and page A303 were not included. The new revised plans do show the details I was questioning on page A303. And that was all concerning the roof heights. So now I confirm the roof heights are correct. So I did review the complete set of plans that were submitted on 1/18/24, and I did not find anything that was incorrect. However, the new plans were notated on the last description of issue as 9/09/05/2023 building permit submittal. And this should be updated. Also, because of all the mistakes and changes, after the planning department stamps the plans as approved, the plan should be made available for public review for a few days before they are sent to the building department. So my questions have been satisfied by the new plans, but I would like to review the plans if they're approved tonight for a few days when they're online in the planning department. If you have any questions, maybe I can help.
Yes. Staff, could you provide us information on the review process if the public would like to review what is allowed and the procedures around that?
So once a project goes through design review, when they submit for a building permit, it's sent to planning and we do what we call a compliance check. So we're evaluating that, the list that I went through, that there are no changes. It's consistent with the original review authority's procedure. And if we find that that is correct, then we would give it back to the building department and the permit would be issued. We don't have a process. This is a little bit of a unique situation because our decision was appealed, but I don't know, if you jump in on this, we typically don't make building permit plans available for review until they're issued. Either if there's something that's substantial that we can't approve, we would hold the issuance of the building permit and have them go back through design review. So if there was, an increase in the height, then we would not issue the permit, have the applicant go back to the design review and start the neighbor notification process, but there's no neighbor notification or public review period for building permits.
The plans will be the same as the ones that are submitted now. So we have a plan check process, and once the permit is issued, we have inspections that are required along the way, but the plans that we have now are going to be the same ones that will be submitted to building. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I guess maybe my question, were the neighbors notified? There was a change that had to go through, a minor change that went through design review.
No, so the change to the finished floor was submitted as a building permit revision.
Okay.
But the neighbors did inquire. They had some questions about the process, so they were aware that there were changes being made to the plans. And we kept in communication and let them know when we received them and made them available for review. And that's
Is that typical? What I'm questioning is if there is a minor revision that will go through a discretionary desk review, does that require the city to notify neighbors that there is going to be a discretionary review that triggers?
the
Some kind of public
process
notice.
that's outlined in the code that allows us to approve changes doesn't require noticing. It says that it's up to the director's discretion if we want to refer it back to the design review board or the original review authority, but it doesn't require that we renotice. I mean, the only time that would happen that we are required is if the changes result in new floor area, new skylights, they automatically have to go.
And the five that you The
Yeah.
5 criteria that you outlined, yeah.
Right.
But other than that, there is no requirement in the code that says if you are going through a desk review, you have to tell the public that you were doing that.
Correct, because if this, planning looks at lots of things, any exterior changes we will review. But if it's just an interior modification that doesn't impact an exterior change, it wouldn't normally even be reviewed by planning
Okay, thank you.
or be required to be.
Thank you for
reviewed.
that clarification.
Maybe I can add a little something to this.
Yes,
So I'll take a second.
I mean, this is part of, can he continue in his?
That's at your discretion, and we just have to make sure that everyone else is given the same.
Yeah, I
time.
think, yeah, I mean, you still have 5 minutes, so
Just to
please.
clarify it.
Yeah.
The pages I was looking for when I went down to the city
Mhm.
was A205. Because the A205 was used at the design review board of 720 and had the changes on that page. That page was not there. So I asked Dina Tassini if she could provide the page, and she wouldn't. She said they were approved. If you want to appeal my decision, you have to take it to the design review board. Since that time, the new set of plans were issued and I was able to access those. There was no changes that were made on those plans on A205 from the 720 meeting. However, it was present now on page A303. That's what I was looking for, to verify. That's what planning was doing. They were translating the approval plans to the review plans for me. I couldn't see them. Now I can. I think I said that on there. I reviewed the plans. They look right to me now. The only thing I'm asking the board at this point is that when the plans are posted online, normally you have a 10-day review period, that you give us a few days to look at the plans that are posted online before you send them out to the building department. That's my only request at this point, but it dates back to the previous design review board in July.
We have no we have no ability to promulgate rules or pass anything in the
Okay.
code, so that's not in our purview.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I make one quick comment, though? It would still go to the same process, though. I mean, the original set that had, I think, the 5 or 6 sheets, that was a partial set to show what changes are being proposed. And we made our decision based on that, saying, it was minor, and then they would submit a full set when they submitted for the building permits, because not all information is required for planning to look at. So since the full set hasn't been approved, depending on how tonight goes, if it is approved, then I would still have to go through the same process. So I'd still have to evaluate it, that nothing's changed from what we look at tonight. So that decision can't be appealed just because there'd be a decision on it, but it's still looking to make sure that it complies.
Okay. Well, I think I'm concluded. If anybody has questions for me. Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Do you have anything? No. Okay. At this time, if the applicant can come up. Please state your name. Thank you.
My name is Carrie White. My wife and I own 283 Cecilia Way. And I'm sorry, this has been just a pretty exhausting process. I can't imagine what it's been for our neighbors. I mean, I'm sorry we're before you again tonight. Building a house is hard. It's really hard. And by all accounts, our project's been especially difficult. This project's been exasperating for me, my wife, my family, our contractors, and our friends. I wanted to say very little tonight, but unfortunately, I think Samantha shared a little bit of information that I think isn't correct about our timeline. But if you may recall, we first came to the board in June for approval in June, and there were a lot of after many months of conversations with the neighbors, and there were some concerns at June, so we continued the hearing to June, later in June, and then again to July, and it was approved in July, and then one of the neighbors appealed the decision in July, and that took us out to September start date. We've since also applied for a fence permit, which was appealed to this board, and So now, in this particular circumstance, if you may not recall, I didn't want to go into a history lesson, but apparently that's necessary tonight. When we had our July hearing, we had discovered before we presented, just like days before we presented, that the architect and I had used two different places to use base our story poles. We were trying to understand why our story poles and why there's so much acrimony between us and the neighbors about the story poles. And we discovered at the last minute that that architect chose as a zero line the base of the gutter in front of the house instead of the top of the sidewalk, which accounts for a 7 5/8 inch difference in height of the story poles. And so understanding that, we had a long discussion here in July about flood and about our original goal, which was to be above the 500-year floodplain. And we agreed and acquiesced to that and said, hey, look, we still need to have it at least 6 inches above. And so we all agreed to a height of 100.57 based on that. And there's a special name for it. It's called an assumed datum. And so there was lots of correspondence about this 100.57 assumed datum, which is what we use for our finished floor level. Regrettably, another error happened and when we submitted our building permit, which was approved, and where the architect did not correct the drawings to show the correct finished floor height on the architectural plans. And when the neighbors got excited about our foundation looking too high, they came down and they looked at the plans and they found, regrettably, this error. And so planning asked us to submit a new set of plans that showed the correct floor height that we presumed was agreed in July 20th of that 100.57. And that's why there's no, at least my expectation, that's why I understand Jim's not fighting the floor height. So this really wasn't about the floor height, it was about correcting the plans. And then Jim had expressed to the planning department that there were insufficient measurements on the side of showing the height of the roof line. And specifically, he was asking for the height of the eave relative to the finished floor, which, you know, since our datum number is in the gutter, there's no real way to measure that elevation anyway with a tape to the finished floor because it's the eave and it's not something used by framers or anything else. But anyway, we had submitted some plans and it didn't include this additional elevation. And so we, after this and some other criticism about this A205, which is not required for building permit, we changed the plans again to address all of his concerns post his appeal. So there's really no change in the building envelope itself or the intent originally of the floor to be at 6 inches below the 500-year floodplain. We agreed to this kind of happy medium, 6 inches above the original floor, 6 inches below the 500-year floodplain, which makes our house already, in some respects, obsolete, right? It's below the flood level. And planning also raised the issue that if we raise the floors, we had talked about having all the windows, we had agreed, we had, as a concession to the neighbors, we had dropped all the windows and doors down to 7 feet and our ceiling heights down to 8 feet. And so, but planning was concerned that the window elevations on the east and west sides would be higher because of the higher floor. So we amended the plans to lower the window heights. We didn't change the size of the windows. We just lowered the windows. So the bottom sill is down 7 5/8 inches. So this is a really peculiar situation where we have our side windows will actually be 7 5/8 inches below our doors in the room and the side windows that face the street. So it's a very peculiar thing. And we did this because we didn't want to have this appealed and we wanted to move forward. And sadly, it was appealed and we're here again. So that's where we're at. But anyway, look, like I said, this project's been exasperating. We're constantly feeling under unnecessary and excessive neighbor scrutiny and attack. Tonight, again, we're asking for, scrutinizing plans. I've been asked for copies of plans and all kinds of other things. And for reasons I can't understand, our neighbors had concerns about our building foundation elevations. They raised these concerns with planning. They reviewed and approved our approved building plans. They found this unimportant error Planning and Building asked us to stop work on our project in early December and submit revised plans. We stopped work. We consulted with Planning and Building and revised and resubmitted new plans addressing the neighbor issues. Planning approved our revised plans. Nevertheless, our neighbor has appealed this approval. Again, we consulted with Planning and Building, revised and resubmitted new plans, further clarifying our intentions. Planning met and corresponded with our neighbors further. Regrettably, our neighbors did not withdraw his appeal, delaying our project even more to now 2-1. So tonight, I request that you reject this approval so we can just move forward and build this house. I mean, you know, we had hoped to finish, everybody knew we were going to build this house for my in-laws. My mother-in-law's health is, declining rapidly, sadly. And we'd hoped to have this house done by this time right now, but this process has taken so long and we still keep getting fought over every single issue. And, I just don't understand really what it is and how many building departments or police departments we have to, go through, but we're really doing our best. And if I'm disappointed also that none of you came out and visited our job site, because our job site, I think, is really in top shape. Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I don't know how you went in because the gate's locked.
No,
Yeah, well, but nobody asked me to walk the site. I mean, we could have walked the site together and showed you all the different things we're doing to try to have a really clean and be conscientious neighbors. And, we've done a lot and we've got a great relationship with our neighbors behind. I just don't, I can't figure out what I need to do to resolve this issue with my neighbors on the other side. We really want to, but that it's been impossible so far, but I'm certainly holding out hope. But I'm here for more questions if you have.
If you can stop the time, we can ask questions. Thank you. Do you have any questions, Jim?
not of the applicant, no.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand one thing. So the top of the windows are the same, and you're saying that on the sides, you brought up the sill.
No, let me walk through specifically what happened. So we agreed to a certain elevation. The elevation drawing was submitted at this hearing, but we didn't change the elevation because the discovery of this error was too late in the process, so we couldn't submit new design drawings for this particular meeting. So at that meeting, we made a number of concessions, like lowering certain things and agreeing to certain deals about the heights of different things. So all those things were part of the conditional approval. We did talk extensively about flood and about flood elevations. And during that meeting, we talked about having our floor being at this 100.57 assumed datum line, which translates to effectively 9.5 feet of the NAVD 88, which is another way to measure elevations. The 500-year flood level is 10 feet. So we're actually half a foot below. So anyway, when we submitted our plans for building, I think my architect was expecting a lot of questions and pushback. And so maybe he wasn't as thorough in his submittal that we sent for the first review, and he wasn't expecting to be approved. And that was an error. And so it got approved there had some wrong notations on there about finished floor level, because this meeting we agreed to crush the roof, because originally we were going to use a truss, which requires the 12 inches at the sill. And we crushed that down because we don't have 12 inches. Now we have 8 inches because we had lost.
So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, my question was, what happened to the windows?
No, so the windows were in a certain position on the drawings, but if we move the floor up 6 inches, in the drawing they'd go up 6 inches, and so the drawing wouldn't be changed for the exterior elevation. In the revised plans, we lowered the windows relative to the finished floor from 7 feet as the top to 6 feet, the specific number there.
So the windows are here. So you're saying that the top of the windows came down,
And the bottom goes too.
the bottom did too.
Because we've bought the windows, to buy windows, they takes months. So the windows are purchased.
Ship.
They're on their way
Sure.
from Europe right now.
So what I'm understanding is you're gonna have a lower ceiling.
No, the ceiling is the same. What we do is crushing the gap between the ceiling and the roof.
That's the question.
So we're not using trusses anymore, which slows the project down because we have to field make the roof. Instead, we're gonna be using interestingly a 2x8 next to the 2x6 ceiling joists that are gonna sit next to each other rather than underneath one another, which is what usually happens. So we're doing a lot of things to make the roof really, really low as we possibly can. So we could have an 8-foot ceiling, but at the roof, because if you look at the measurement on the side is extraordinarily low. From the finished floor, this is the elevation Jim wanted. The roof eave on the edge is 10 feet 7 inches on both the east and west, and this is the back corners of the house. Jim's math is correct if we had gone the old way, but if we used the 9-foot, whatever it was he was asking about, the eave would have been higher. But actually, by keeping the eave lower relative to the finished floor, once again, this is a kind of an irrelevant number where nobody's going to use this when we're building it. But the relative to the finished floor, the eave actually drops that 7 5/8 inches to now 8 feet 7.5 inches.
Got it. So everything, and if this is the datum of, you know, whatever elevation we're using, you
Right.
know, the roof is staying the same.
Correct.
The relationship, it's just that the floor is going up. And
And the roof, the ceiling is getting.
See, what really should have
yeah,
been.
yeah, this.
What
ceiling
really
is
should have been,
raised,
the
yeah.
plans and the story poles should have been up
Sure.
7.5 inches.
Sure. So this is going up, but the windows in relationship, I mean, the roof is staying the same and the windows are not moving. It's just that the relationship to the finished floor. is
Correct.
changing.
The windows are staying exactly the same on the elevation.
Got it. Okay.
But,
Now
but
I-
it's in a peculiar spot because it's different from everywhere else in the house. But the real thing is, like I said, it's a criminal mistake that has happened some time ago, which was that, you know, honestly, when we originally had the story poles that were higher and then we agreed to drop them 9 inches, kind of cavalierly following our first meeting here in June. And we really dropped them too low, significantly too low.
Okay, and then so this is happening on the sides, you're keeping the maintaining the elevation, and in the front, you are accommodating the windows, so they're going up slightly.
Correct. On the
Okay,
front, the
got
windows,
it.
are still
That's what I was
7
trying to
feet.
understand.
There's sliders in the front and the sliders, everything's 7 feet except on the sides.
Got it, so so now the sills all the way around won't match.
Correct.
Okay, now I,
The tops of the windows aren't going to match in several rooms, correct? That's what we drew so that we did it because we didn't want to have this appeal,
okay,
you know, and now it's being appealed but with that, it's already been drawn. So it's, you know, it is what it is.
okay. Any other questions to the applicant?
Yeah, and once again, I apologize for taking so much time explaining your questions, but I mean, I certainly welcome Jim to come up and if his recollection of the circumstances is different from mine, you know, I have no problem listening to him talk about his recollection instead.
Okay, and you're yielding your time, so we will now move on to public comment. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Shadon, and I live on the west side of his property. And I support the Fitzgeralds in this appeal. It looks like now we finally have the drawings similar to what was approved in July. I would, because this is a public meeting and because you are reviewing it, I would like to make sure, because my measurements don't agree with the applicant's measurements. So I would like it stated here, if he agrees, that the windows will be below the existing fence. I don't believe that that's possible, but I'm willing, I think that's great. That's what we talked about in July. That was the reason that planning has told me in emails that they were very concerned about the difference in height in the finished floor, that it would bring the windows up and over the existing fence, which would be looking into every room of my east side of my house. So Dina and Samantha have both told me that was their concern and why they asked the applicant to lower his windows. I overheard Dina asking him to lower his windows. And that's why they went down. And I think this is great that he can move forward. I just would like it somehow a condition stated here, which you do have the possibility of putting a condition that it says on that drawing, A202, it shows that those windows were below. So when the framing starts, I don't want to have to come back here again and say, wait a minute, this is what we approved. And then the applicant will say, well, I ordered my windows from Europe and oh my, poor me. This is what the approval is. And believe me, we neighbors want him to build his house. It says, coming here tonight, I've had to rearrange my schedule. I've had to do a lot. I don't enjoy this. No one enjoys this. We want, and the sniggering is unappreciated. And so, you know, in terms of I would also like to state that we have not been, neither one of his neighbors has been consulted and talked to. And I recently went to him and tried to talk to him about this gap that's going to happen between our properties, and it's actually going to expose his side yard. And I said, can we talk about this? Let's come up with something. I do want him to build his house. I want him to move forward. You know, he has an easement in front of my house. No one in their right mind would want to extend that and reduce their own parking spaces. So all I want is for you all to note that the drawings on A202 show those windows below the top sill, below the part of my fence that has lattice. And I want to make sure that's what's built, because we've had so many errors on this project. It's error after error after error, and that's not the neighbor's fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience like to speak?
My name is Evelyn Wu. I live at 263 Cecilia Way. I've been there for almost 40 years. And your house, his house doesn't affect my house. I don't live next door or whatever, but I'm here to support the Fitzgeralds and for Carolyn because I used to be on the board about 30 years ago, and I've seen a lot of these projects come in, and because our houses are so close together that it's really important that we preserve privacy. And so that includes the light pollution, includes the height. And so, I mean, we don't have the space to enjoy and have the ability to absorb those issues about light pollutions. And when you have a house like, I mean, when I first saw your house, Carrie, the design, I thought it was just lovely. It was innovative. I love the design, but you know, because it is, we just want to preserve the character of the neighborhood. And so, which is one story, and not impact our privacy. I moved from the city, grew up in a 3-story house, no privacy in the North Beach, not North Beach, you know, Russian Hill, Nob Hill area. And I moved to Tiburon. I love this area because it's 1-story private. I can do whatever I want in my backyard, and that's what the character I would like to preserve, and I've been advocating that for as long as I've been here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Carpenter. I'm the homeowner at 283 Cecilia. And I just sort of wanted to share that this, I can't really keep on top of all the details. He's doing a pretty good job of doing all this stuff, but the impact to the family of these constant like stops and starts of this job. And as he mentioned, one of the true reasons why I wanted to move to here was to help my mother. And we expected that we were going to be in by now, and yet we're stopped again for another couple of months. And it's very unfortunate. I'm just hopeful that we can get through this situation and move forward soon. And I hope that we can do whatever we can all work together to avoid delays in the future. I feel like that we've made a lot of compromises and we've tried to do everything that we can, compromising, left, right, and the center to just move forward, and it just doesn't work. And I don't expect it to work here now, but I'm hopeful that you guys can help us move forward with this project and help this not happen again. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to make a comment? Is there anyone online who'd like to make a comment?
Chair, there are no hands raised.
Okay, the appellant now is entitled to 3 minutes to make their statement.
Summarize things, I think we drifted a little bit here. It was a simple matter. From the 7/20 Design Review Board meeting, there were some changes made. I was just checking with the city to see if those changes were accurately shown on the new plans. They weren't. There were some other changes going on. He submitted new plans. They look fine to me. The only thing I was asking at this point was to look at the plans. I think Samantha said I can come down and look at them at some point. So that I'm satisfied with that. I don't know how it drifted so far, but that's all I was asking. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Any questions? No, okay. If we can reset the clock, if the applicant has 3 minutes now.
Once again, Carrie White, 283 Cecilia Way. You just heard from my wife, Carrie Carpenter. So I had a really tough time trying to understand Jim's appeal. And I think tonight's hearing is really about the contents of his appeal. And to the best of my knowledge, the several things that he was appealing were a missing elevation number and a missing page that was presented for our DRB presentation, but that wasn't included in our building permit. And to my knowledge, neither of those were requirements for our building permit. And our project, I believe, has been unnecessarily delayed 2 months to sort this out, because that's what this process is. And to Jim's defense, it happened just before Christmas break. And so nothing could be resolved until after that. And once again, his only remedy, sadly, was to appeal. But once again, it seems silly to appeal a project that was meeting his expectations because some documentation that wasn't required was missing. And once again, we too value and appreciate privacy. But both neighbors have a history of standing on ladders and talking down to me and to my workers regularly and telling us how to do things. And, we just want to build our house. So honestly, I find some of these comments about privacy somewhat hard to take. But, be that as it may, we're doing the best we can. And I hope you saw from our project site that it looks really good. The back fence looks terrific. It's finished. And the pool's poured. And we're trying to do what we can until this issue is resolved. And we're hoping that you'll deny this appeal and allow us to move forward with the revised drawings that were resubmitted of late that includes all the measurements that Jim requested. And, we will add that notation. Once again, I can't recommend this architect for anybody else. But what the notation Jim's talking about is the one down here about revision notes. And we'll make that notation on the plans that are going to be submitted for building permit, so that we're all satisfied that this new set is the correct set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So just to be very, very clear, what we are determining is whether or not, not the decision, but whether or not the, that this discretionary review was valid. Is that a good characterization?
Correct, and that the changes that were made were consistent with the original intent of the approval. It doesn't expand the use. It does not exempt it. I can go back through the list if it's helpful to have that. Whoa. Are you? Let you go.
It's just whether the amended plans are consistent with the original approval and with the findings made by planning staff to approve the change to the finished floor height are sufficient.
So it's more procedural rather than of the content. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So do we believe that, so am I phrasing this? Please stop me if I'm phrasing. I guess what we need to consider is whether or not.
There's also the resolution. The first attachment would be a good reference for how you could phrase it if you would, or what we're looking for, what you're analyzing. Isn't it this one, attachment one?
No, that's,
Oh.
there is no resolution.
Oh, I thought, okay.
The first attachment is the breakdown of the process of how appeals are done.
Yes,
There is no resolution, because within that it says that you will direct staff to come back at the next meeting with a resolution to either uphold, approve. It's been a long day. To uphold the appeal or deny the appeal, sorry.
To grant, deny, or modify. And you're looking at whether the amended plans are consistent with the original approval and planning staff's approval was sufficient.
there is a draft resolution.
That's what I thought.
We,
Oh, wait, maybe that was in a prior, it was in a prior, this is what gets so confusing.
It's
That was not, it was an attachment one, but that was for a prior,
yes, we included the original meeting documents just for reference of the approval and documents that were provided, but there's no resolution to look at. You're not directing, the motion wouldn't be to direct staff to adopt any draft resolution because a resolution has not been written. So the motion would be to determine if staff's assessment of the changes were minor in nature and upheld all of those findings.
And-
Or if we
yeah.
didn't.
and I don't see anywhere where it lists the 5 findings that you stated to us verbally that you had to have made. It is,
That is part of attachment 5. So there was a memo to the, sorry, it's a big packet.
okay,
So under attachment 5, when the original determination was made, there was a memo that provided the background.
got
And
it.
then made each of the findings
So
within
there's actually 6 findings that have to be made.
it. Mhm.
Okay, so the appeal was based on number 3 and 5, or it's number 3?
I'm just gonna go back to look at the language of the appeal so I don't misquote anything. So the actual basis for appeal that was submitted is that the roof height as shown on the plans is incorrect.
So that means that,
Our determination was incorrect because the height varied. The appeal, this- some paraphrasing, is that our assessment was incorrect because they're saying the height was inconsistent on the revised plans from what was approved at the board.
So you're looking at whether the height is correct from the approved plans and the current plans that we have before us. If you determine that the height is correct, then you are saying that the plans are consistent and you deny the appeal. If you're saying the height is incorrect, you are granting the appeal and you can, do with that what you will. And you just have to, you would tell us why you are saying the height is incorrect, why you're saying the height is incorrect, and those would be the findings that you're making. So if you're saying the height is correct, appeal is denied. If the height is incorrect, the appeal is granted, or you can modify.
Okay,
how-
thanks for distilling that. So. Jim,
Well, first of all, I think we have to rely on the staff for proper procedure, and I think they did the proper procedure. They moved the plans between themselves and the building department at appropriate times, so I don't think that's an important issue. I think the staff took appropriate action, given the mistake on the plans of 7 5/8 inches. The key issue here is, does it change the privacy, the windows on the sides of this house? Has the privacy been changed by the elevation of the floor inside? And the answer is no, because they've taken the issue, solved the problem by leaving the windows exactly as they are. So from the inside, the windows will look 7 5/8 of an inch lower, but from the outside, they'll look exactly the same. So there's no change, and there's no change in the roof height. So they've done appropriate actions. The staff has taken appropriate actions. By his own admission, Mr. Fitzgerald, the appellant, said that he agreed that the plans had taken that appropriate action. So I think we can make the findings that the staff has done the appropriate work, and there is no reason for the appellant to succeed in this, and it would be denied. And I can make the findings for it.
I'm happy to go next. Just out of curiosity, question for the staff is, can an appellant withdraw an appeal like after it's been started?
yes.
Yeah, so I mean, at risk of oversimplifying it, it's, I mean, the whole reason that we have the staff's ability to approve stuff is so that every single minor change that happens as part of construction doesn't have to come back to the design review board. And there's a process, I guess, for people to be able to appeal those. I mean, when I looked at it, it was very simple. Like we had an issue with the roof height when it first came through. Is the point changing from where it is in the sky essentially? And then the other point is the windows. So again, at risk of oversimplifying, this was an easy one. And I think maybe didn't need as much discussion, but nevertheless, I am very supportive of the denial of the appeal.
I'll be brief and say I agree with both my colleagues on the board. I think the staff did all the appropriate measures, and that's actually why I would not that we've discussed the potential condition that was suggested. I would not be in favor of that, because I think that, would undermine what a great job that the staff did with this. And I would support the denial of the appeal.
This is why there's a standard of care as an architect. This is why you have E&O insurance.
Well, you have insurance.
Exactly. I hate to say it, this happens all the time in construction. This is not unusual, unfortunately. Simple mistakes like this have big impact. And I'm sorry the architect failed, so I can make the findings and I support the denial of the appeal.
All right, so with that, I'll make a motion. Let's see, just make sure I get it right. So as to 283 Cecilia Way,
We direct staff.
I moved to direct staff to prepare a resolution denying the appeal.
A second.
We'll have a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So let it be known that all 4 members who are present voted in favor, 0 just denied the denial, in favor of the appeal. So the motion passes to deny the appeal, or actually to direct staff to make a motion or a resolution to deny the appeal. And the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is.